Hello everyone, welcome to another Playwright tutorial, and in this video I'll be discussing Playwright Fixture, and we'll be talking about the built-in fixture versus custom fixtures, and we'll also look at an example. So first of all, what is a fixture? So think of a fixture as a ready-made object that Playwright sets up for you before your test runs and cleans up after your test finishes. So when you start writing a test, for example, I'm going to write a test very quickly. First of all, obviously, you need to have a spec.ts file because that's the one we're going to use for writing tests. And I'm using TypeScript, so you'll have to do spec.ts. So here we're going to import test from Playwright test, and then we're going to write our test. So for this tutorial, I just wrote a very simple test. So I'll just copy that. So it's basically going to visit a homepage for you. For example, we can visit google.com. So here, instead of the example.com, I'm going to say www.google.com, right? And that's it. So what's happening here and how does the built-in fixture working here? Okay. So Playwright already gives you built-in fixtures, including browser. So which means the whole browser, like launching Chrome or Firefox. It also provides context, which basically means you're going to get an isolated browser profile, cookies, storage every time you run a test. And obviously the page, which is a single browser type. So when you run a test, what happens? It opens a browser for you. It creates a browser profile for you, and it also creates a single browser tab where you're going to interact with your web application. Okay, so we don't actually write context or browser. We only do, if you look at the test again, you'll see that we only import test from Playwright test, and that automatically provides the context and the browser tab. So you don't have to import them. You just import the test, which is the test function, to writing our test. Okay, so these three are already provided. And then we wrote our test, which is just going to visit google.com. So what's happening here? So before the test starts, Playwright launches the browser, creates a context, and opens a page. So when you run this test that, hey, go to google.com, what's happening? It's opening the browser for you. It's creating a browser profile for you, isolated, like setting up your storage and cookies and everything. And then it opens a page, which is basically like opening a tab for you. So it does that. And then opens your web app in that page or in that tab. During the test, you interact with the page or the application that you want to visit. And then after test, Playwright closes it all down for you. And you didn't have to manually launch or close anything. That's the fixture magic. So fixture behind the scene does everything for you. So before test, during the test, after test. So you have a complete setup when you run a test. And that's what's happening here. So if I now click on run, this is what we're gonna get. So it's gonna open the Chrome browser for you. It's gonna create a browser profile for you, and it's gonna let you interact with the web page. And after the test is done, it will be closed for you. So as you can see, it completed my test. It took 3 seconds to complete all the steps. Since I'm running this in headless mode, we're not gonna see any browser. But that's how the built-in fixture works. But now we want to talk about the important concept, which is user-defined fixture. How do I create a custom fixture and how do I use it in my testing? So sometimes your tests require extra setup. that goes beyond the built-in fixtures. For example, you can have a sign up login in before every test. You have a preloading certain data. You may need to navigate to a specific page. So everything can be done in the fixture. So instead of repeating this step in every test, you can extend the built-in test with a custom fixture. So we'll look at an example, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. That example is basically adding sign up logic directly into a custom fixture and using it in your test so that you don't have to sign up before every test. Okay, we will just add that logic in our custom fixture and we will use that for every test. And this approach makes your tests cleaner, faster, and more maintainable. So now let's look at step by step. How do I do this? The very first step is you're going to extend the built-in test. So we need to understand like why we are extending the built-in test. So we extend the built-in test to add custom setup without altering its existing functionality. So what does that mean? So if you look at our example spec.ts, here you will notice that we're using everything provided by Playwright. The test, expect, page. All these are already provided to you, but now we are building our own helper or the fixture. So we don't want to modify or alter the built-in test. We want to have our own logic, which is why we're going to extend the test so that we are focusing on the custom functionalities instead of altering this test. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a fixture.ts file. And I created the fixtures.ts file under the same directory, tests. So both files are under tests. Okay. So let's leave the test as it is. We'll change it after we are done writing the fixture. So first step for our fixture is we're going to do the import. We're going to import a few things. First, we're going to do import test as base. And then we're gonna import expect. And then we're gonna also import the page class from Playwright test. That's going to be our first step. Once we have that, the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna define the type. Since I'm writing the test using TypeScript, it will be slightly different than JavaScript. In JavaScript, we will not have to do this step, but in TypeScript, you will have to do this. So what we are doing here, we are defining a type. So basically, it's a type alias that describes the shape of an object. Since we're using a custom fixture with our signed up page, we are basically telling our test that, okay, hey, the signed up page we're creating is basically a page object because we're not going to use the default page object. So if you look at here, we're using the default page. But since we're going to use the fixture, we're not going to use the default page anymore. And that's what we're going to tell in the fixture. So we're going to say type, and then we're going to have the page object defined here. So I'm going to say type, give it a name. Let's call this my fixtures. And we're going to say signed up page. That's going to be the name of our new page object, which is a type of page. Okay. Once we have done defining our type, we can now focus on creating the helper or the fixture. So we got our type. We're telling that, okay, the signed up page that we are going to create is a page object. Okay, the next thing is we're going to create our object, which is going to be extending the base. So I'm going to do a variable here. Let's get constant, give it a name, test, equal to base dot extend. And here we're gonna first tell the type that we just created, which is my fixture. And then here we're gonna complete the code. We're gonna have our signed up page, async page. And here's the new thing that we're gonna use, call use. Okay. So the new thing that you're seeing here is use. Now the question is, what is use and how does this work? Okay, let's try to understand this. So with use, what is going to happen is the fixture sets up the page. Okay, so the fixture is saying that, okay, hey, we're not going to have the default page object. We're going to have the signed up page object, which is the custom made page. And that use is basically going to passes it to the test as signed up page. That's why we're using the use, which is a callback function. So now we're not going to have the default page object anymore. We are telling this clearly that we're going to use the signed up page, which is already prepared. Okay. And then it will do the cleanup after the test finishes if needed. So that's why we're going to use the use callback function. Okay, so once we have that, now the next step is we're gonna need to complete the sign up logic. So what's the sign up logic? It's just we're gonna go to the link where we wanna do the sign up. And this is the page where we are going to complete the sign up. So username, email, password, confirmation password, and then complete sign up. So I'm gonna just copy this link and then complete all these logic, click on sign up so that I can go to the next page. I'll not explain that because you guys already know this. How does this work? So I'm just gonna copy this code and put it into my fixture. So once we have the steps ready, so that basically going to complete all the steps by going to this link. Next thing that we're gonna do after we have all these steps, we are going to pass the signed up page to the test. Okay, so we already have the callback function, but we need to pass the signed up page to the test. So for that, we have to use the command await use page. It's going to hand the prepared page to your actual test function. So in my code, I will just simply write await use page. Okay, so this is the page that we prepared as signed up page. Once we're done with that, there is one more step that is required, which is the export. So export will let you share the extended test definition with other test files because you may have multiple test files so that all the test files can use the logic from the fixture. We're going to export, test, and expect. So these two will now come from my custom fixture. So after we have written the helper, we're gonna do the export. And what we are exporting is test and expect. And that's it. So you got our fixture ready. That means this will help us to complete the sign up. And once the sign up is complete, we will write a very simple test to just to see if the next page is loading correctly. Okay, so inside the test, you can now access the signed up page, which is already signed up for you. And what we're gonna do here is we're gonna just see if the login page loads correctly. And we will just check the title to see if the login page title is displaying correctly. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that code. So we have this code, so I'm going to make some changes to this code. The first thing is we're not going to use the playwright/test anymore. Instead, we're going to use dot slash fixture because the fixture and the example.spec.ts are under the same directory tests. That's why you have to do dot slash fixture, which basically means look at the same folder. Okay, because my fixture is in the same folder. Instead of saying visit homepage, um, we're gonna just check the login page. So login page loads correctly. That's what we're gonna check. And we're not gonna go to any link because once we complete the sign up, it will automatically take me to the login page. So I'm just gonna check if the login page loads correctly and checks the title of the login page. Okay. So I'm gonna oh, we're not gonna use page anymore. Remember, we're gonna use the sign up page now. Okay, so everything will be done using the sign up page. Dot wait for timeout. Let's wait a few seconds because otherwise it's gonna go super fast and you can't even see if the login page loads or not. Okay. And here we're gonna check the title of the login page. So I'm gonna do await, expect, signed up page to have title. And the title, I already checked the title, so it looks like login automation practice. That's the title of that page. Okay, so now let's see if my test works. I'm gonna do npx playwright test dash dash headed so that I can actually see the browser. If I don't do headed, I'm not gonna see the browser. So let's see what happens. So it's running the test and it actually fails. And let's see why. Oh, okay, I see why it failed. I forgot to, no, actually, oh, I forgot to write await. So remember that in Playwright, we have to keep writing await, and this is asynchronous. So let's do this again. And you can see that it's waiting 5 seconds and checking the title. And you can see that there is nothing wrong. I think it completed. Yep, you can see that test passed. So the fixture is allowing you to complete um, the sign up. And then when the sign up is complete, it hands over the sign up page to your test. And then your test starts from there. Okay, so that's how you can create a custom fixture to complete the sign up page, and then you can hand it over to your actual test. Hopefully the video makes sense. Thank you for watching, guys. Bye.